Sabbath blessings, Shabbat Shalom. This morning we would like to take a look at the subject, which is the naked bow Nephilin culture. And we want to take a prophetic look at this in that it will be illustrated in the imagery of an unsheathed, an uncovered bow, ready to be fired. It is one which signifies an open display of divine strength and judgment against the enemies of Yah. And as such, I would like for you to open your Bibles this morning to the book of Habakkuk. And we're going to dilate a little on the first chapter. This prophet is one who prophesied during the time that Judah was about to be taken into captivity, and he warned. But the people would not listen to him, and he spoke to Yah, and Yah responded to him through this little book. So we would like to look at it and address the subject of our choice this morning. So the word says in chapter 1, and starting in verse 1, in the book of Habakkuk, the message which the Nabi Habakkuk saw: O Yahweh, till when shall I cry, and you not hear? I cry to you, and you do not save. Why do you show me wickedness and cause me to see perversity? For ruin and violence are before me, and there is strife and contention arises. Therefore the Torah ceases, and right ruling never goes forth. For the wicked hem in the righteous, so that right ruling comes out twisted. So we have here the prophet Habakkuk, and all that Habakkuk could see in his midst, in his environment, is violence. And he's asking Yah, why won't you do something? I'm seeing perversity, and I'm seeing violence, wickedness, and it's as if the law, the Torah, has ceased to exist among the people. You would think Habakkuk was living in our days, because there is no difference between the time that he lived and what's happening now. In fact, it is worse now. And as I read Yah's word, more and more I understand the times that I live in. I also recall my experience as an apprentice engineer, in the sense that I can now use this for the sake of theology than I can for the sake of engineering. And what do I mean by that? We have here Habakkuk seeing things, and he's wondering why Yahweh is not doing anything. But Yah answers him in verse 5. Yah says, look among the nations Behold, it comes with an imperative. Yah is saying, Habakkuk, you're not seeing the way you should see. You're seeing from your own hunch, your own intuition, gut feelings. That's how you're seeing. Look among the nations and see and be amazed. Be amazed, for a work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. Yah says, all you're seeing, you're focusing on your little nation of Judah. But take a wider view. Look at the nations around you and understand the context of what is happening. Understand this, Habakkuk. Look, you have become besotted with Israel. Study the nations and understand the context. See, I am raising up the Kasdite. I am raising up the Chaldeans. Yes, talking here to Habakkuk. He said, I'm sending for the Babylonians, a bitter and hasty nation who is going through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are frightening and fearsome. Their right ruling and their exaltation proceed from themselves. Yahweh says, just be patient, Habakkuk. Your countrymen are behaving in ways that offend not only you, but me. But I'm sending for the Babylonians. I'm sending for Nebuchadnezzar to come and take them away. I'm using him as a chastising rod. You don't see that, Habakkuk, but that's what is happening. That's what is happening. Habakkuk could not see that. And as I think of that, I think of what is currently happening in Gaza. Most people that I have spoken to and the things that I've written in response to some of the things that I have read, I've come to the conclusion that most people do not understand, even as Habakkuk did not understand the situation then. And so it reminds me, as I indicated earlier, as to the time when I was an apprentice, in the sense that I was able to spend some meaningful time in the drawing office. And it taught me that in technical drawings, you have a front view of something that is as if you look in directly at projection, front elevation. And then you have a side projection view, which means you're looking at the same object from the side. And then you have a plan view, which means that you're looking at the same object from the top of it. So you have the front view, the side view, and you have the plan view. Now, the front elevation, that will give you the height and the width of the object. And the side view will give you the height and the depth. And the plan view will give you the length and the width. So although you're looking at this object, different people are looking at it from a different perspective. And I think most people today are looking at the situation in Gaza from the side view. They're looking at it from the side view. So the best way to look at this is to get a view that is really giving you a complete understanding of what's going on. An orthographic view that gives you all the perspective of what is going on. And it seems here that Yah is saying to Habakkuk, Habakkuk, you are seeing things the way you're seeing them. You do not have an orthographic view. That orthographic view that I here speak about, it is a two-dimensional drawings, but present them in a three-dimensional fashion. That's what we do in technical drawings. You can have what they would call, and some people do have this, an isometric view. But the isometric view doesn't give you the complete details, particularly if, in engineering, you're one who is dealing with measurements and tolerance. For example, if you're going to build an engine and you want to make sure that everything is so tight that the oil will not seep out, it's important that measurements and those things are accurate. And so you would need an orthographic view in order to build that kind of thing. And Habakkuk here did not have that view. Yah said, look at the nation and get the context. Look at the nation. So we come to chapter 2 of Habakkuk, and it says, this is Habakkuk now responding to what Yah says in verse 5, I stand at my watch and station myself on the watchtower and wait to see what he says to me and what answer when I am reproved. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the visions and inscribe on the tablets so that he who reads it runs. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, and it speaks of the end and does not lie. If it lingers, wait for it shall certainly come. It shall not delay. My word will not return to me void. Verse 4, see, he whose being is not upright in him is puffed up, but the righteous one lives by steadfastness. The just in these times must live by faith. It's the same text found in Romans that Luther stumbled on, and he realized that he must change. Even as Habakkuk realizes now that he's not seeing things in the way that Yah sees it. And in order to be a prophet, you must see things the way Yah sees them. See, look. It's an imperative statement. You are seeing in the sense that you're focused on your own little corner, provincial. You need a more wider view. So you could say most people today, they are suffering from orthographic dyslexia. They're not seeing, they're not reading right. They're not reading right. And so in verse 9 of chapter 3, we see that you uncover your bow. The bow is naked here. The hooks of the rod of the word. The bow is naked. It's unsheathed. The quivers are open. It's ready to be fired on a people that are disobedient. And Yah wants Habakkuk to know that. He's crying out and saying, this is happening to my people. And Yah is saying, they're disobedient. And I'm going to raise up the Chaldean to come and chastise them. But you're not seeing that. Look at the nations around you. Look at. And so this morning, we want to look at that bow, because the bow is used as a weapon here. But we also want to look at the bow that is used as a covenant. As a covenant. So we're going to ask you to come to the book of Genesis, that's Bereshit. And in chapter 9 that was read earlier, you know the story that with Noah, at least during his time, the people had become quite wicked. The word says that all flesh had become corrupt. And again, you would think that Noah was living in our time. All flesh had become corrupt to the extent where we're told, and we will go there, because the story of the Nephilin, and we're talking about the Nephilin culture and the bow, it's somewhat truncated in the book of Genesis. So we want to look at both Jasher and Jubilee to get a wider context. So we're not just seeing what Genesis said, but how Enoch presents the situation. So we now understand the bow and the Nephilin culture. What was happening then in Noah's time found themselves in this culture. But because we're not seeing, we're not understanding what is going on. So in chapter 9 here of Bereshit, the word says, let's start at verse 14. And the word says, and it shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow, or the bow, in the Hebrew it's the bow, shall be seen in the cloud. You shall see in the cloud. If you understand that, we just read in Habakkuk 3:9 that the bow is uncovered. It's naked. And when something is naked, you can see it. And the bow is the word. But the word, as you know, is a two-edged sword. It is being used against the people. The word says when Yeshua comes, that from his mouth, it will slay, the word will slay the wicked. That's the bow. And verse 15 says, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh, and never again let the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. Right now, the preeminent thing in this world is climate change. And while that may be going on, Yah said, don't worry, the water will not engulf the world again like it did. This time, when I'm coming with fire. So we need to see things the way Yah sees them, as Habakkuk found out. He's seeing violence, he's seeing things, and Yah is letting him know that I'm only using the Chaldeans as a weapon against my people. And so when you go to Gaza, you got to ask yourself, what is happening? What is happening in Gaza? And we will get there in a minute. We want to answer that question, at least do a sketch of it, literary sketch, to see if we are making sense of the situation. But let's stay here in chapter 9. Yah says, I've put my bow in the sky. So even if you are an unlettered person, you can't read, you can see it. He says, this is the covenant that I've made with you, Noah, and I've made with the earth. and have made with the animals. It's an everlasting covenant. You got to understand that. And so when the sister read this morning from the book of Revelation, it says the everlasting gospel must be preached to all the world. Noah knew there was to be a Messiah. And so Noah had the gospel before. It's everlasting. Adam had that. That after sin, only the Messiah could come and save mankind because sin had become a genetic transmission. We understand that. So Yah says, I put a bow in the sky. And that ought to remind you not only of the covenant, but what transpired before that. What transpired? What caused that to happen? And so we're going to look at Enoch and chapter 6. Enoch chapter 6, or Enoch. And it came to pass, and it came to be, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them good-looking and lovely daughters. And the messengers, the children of Shemayin, these are the angels, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and bring forth children. So understand what's happening here. Enoch wants you to know that in the time of Noah, what happened was that the angels, whose estate is in heaven, they came down, saw the daughters of men, took them as wives, and had children, and produced Nephilin. That's the kind of culture we're dealing with today. Remember, our subject is the bow, the naked bow, and the Nephilin culture. So understand what Enoch is trying to teach us here. The angels are not like human beings. We're told that we are made a little lower than the angel. And Yah said, I made human being in my image, my likeness. So you have a crossbreed of people between angels and humans, and they're called Nephilin. And one wonders today, in a culture where people are saying they don't know who they are, we don't know the male from the female, and people are having all kind of therapy to change their birth identity into something else. We are moving towards, if we're not yet there, in a Nephilin culture. And the bow is naked. The bow is ready to strike. This naked bow, it is untreated, it is uncovered, ready to be fired. So Yah is not only saying to Habakkuk, look. He's saying to us, look at what is happening in all the nations, all the countries, the morality that exists. And so the violence that you see, the corruption that you're witnessing, the lack of faith you see even in the church, it's a condition of men's heart, just like it was in Noah's time. And Enoch here is letting us know. Verse 3, and Shemyasta, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath, and all bind themselves to mutual curses, not to abandon this plan, but to do this matter. Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Yared on the summit of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is in Israel. This is the highest peak mountain in Israel. And I believe this is exactly where Yeshua was taken in the book of Luke chapter 4, where Satan took him to be tempted and says, jump off. So Enoch is letting you know this mountain here, Mount Hermon, is where the falling angels came down. And last week we looked at where they are now, and we thought it was they are in Antarctica, where the abyss is. And so Enoch here is letting you know. And so if we go into chapter 7, it says, and all the others took unto themselves wives, and each chose one for himself, and they began to go into them and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments. Did you hear me? The falling angels taught the humans charms and enchantment and the cutting of roots, and made them to know plants, and they became pregnant, and they brought forth great giants, and the giants brought forth Nephilins, and the Nephilin brought forth Eliot. That's what happened in Noah's time. That's what happened. And so we're going to take a look also at chapter 4 of the book of Yesha. That's Jesha. And in verse 16 it says, and all the sons of men departed from the ways of Yahweh in those days, and they multiplied upon the face of the earth with sons and daughters, and they taught one another their evil practices, and they continued sinning against Yahweh. And every man made for himself a mighty one. They made gods. And they robbed and plundered every man his neighbor as well as his relative. I'm reading this so you get an idea, an orthographic view, not just an isometric view of what are the conditions before destruction comes. So we're looking at the condition of the times in which the people who lived in Noah, what was happening, robbing, raping, they were doing all of that. And it says in verse 18, and their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth. Did you hear me? They took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, and taught the mixture of animal of one species with the other in order to provoke Yahweh by it. Did you get that? Let me say it another way. It says during the time of Noah, they were mixing the species of the animals. We call it GMO today. Yes, I said don't mix it. They were mixing the cloth, the linen, with the wool. They were taking the seeds out of the fruits like they're doing today. And so when Solomon looks at this, he said, there is nothing new under the sun. Enoch and Jasher wants you to know that GMO was present back then in Noah's time, because the evil angels taught the people to do these things. Let's read it again for emphasis. And the judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force, and their husbands according, did you hear that? Not only the wives they took, their husbands too. So you get the impression here that even two husbands together in that time, the same thing you're having now. This gender fluidity, it was there back in Noah's time. And so you can understand why Habakkuk is told the bow is naked. It's ready to strike. And Yah said, did I not put my bow in the sky? This is a covenant that you would not repeat what these people did. But now in the end time generation, you are doing the very same thing. Now the bow is naked. And so they taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other in order to provoke Yahweh by it. So we know it's provocative. We go into the supermarkets and we buy these provocative items and we cook them and we heat them. Remember what the covenant was in chapter 9. It says the covenant is with Noah and with the animals and with the fruits. So when you do that, you break the covenant. When you take the seeds out and they mix the animal, they break the covenant. And you become complicit in doing that. Can you not see it? So what do you see, Habakkuk? What do you see, Titanic generation? You see the bow in the sky and you take photographs of it and you say, what a beautiful rainbow. But what does it signify? Yah says, my covenant is with you and with the animals, with the fruits. It's an everlasting covenant. And you go to the supermarket and you violate the covenant, and the word says you provoke Yah. You provoke Yah. Because you can't bear to spit out a pip out of a grape. You would prefer just to have those grapes without seed. Whereas Yeshua made it very clear. Shall we go there just to remind ourselves? Genesis, that's chapter 1, and we will look at verse 29. Genesis, that's Bereshit, chapter 1 and verse 29. And it says, and Elohim said, see, did you hear that? See, you must look, Habakkuk. Behold, I have given you every plant that yields seed. I have given you every plant that yields seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you, it is a food. The implication here, an implicit in the statement, if it has no seed, it's not food. It's not approved by Yah if it has no seed. In the supermarket, they're all taken out. So when you go in, you provoke Yah when you buy that and you eat that. It's there in the word. You have broken the everlasting covenant. Can you not see what the people are doing, Habakkuk? Can you not see? And so that's what they were doing in the time of Noah. And Yeshua did say, did he not, that when he's coming back, it will be no different than it was back then in the time of Noah. They will marry in and taken in marriage, and they will be eating and drinking. And most people today are eating and they're drinking foods that provoke Yah. It's in the word. That's what it says. And we don't even seem to blink. It doesn't matter. And in verse 20, hear me, it says, and all men who walked in the ways of Yah died in those days before Yahweh brought the evil upon man, which he had declared. For this was from Yahweh, that they should not see the evil. From Yahweh spoke concerning the sons of men. And Noah found favor. He found grace in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh chose him and his children to rise up seed from them unto the face of the whole earth. So Yahweh is doing the very same thing. There are going to be people who is called to live like Noah. Peter tells us that Noah was a righteous man and a preacher of righteousness, meaning that he was the eighth Melchizedek. So when we read Genesis and we see that 8 people were saved, that's not what the significance of that mean. Peter said he was the 8th preacher of Zedek. He was righteous now. He was a Melchizedek. And at this point, you need to understand that Melchizedek is not a person, but is an office. And people throughout the ages have occupied that position of Melchizedek until the real Melchizedek come. You find that in Hebrews chapter 7, that's a Messiah. That's the king of Salem, the king of peace, the king of Shalom is coming. And so we've got to understand what is happening, that the people, they have broken and continue to break the commandments. But they cannot break the commandment. It's a kind of a paradox. Because John 10:35 says, the law cannot be broken. It breaks you. You cannot break commandments because Yah's word cannot be broken. That's what the word says. And so we really have to take heed of what is happening among us. We see things, even as Asaph saw. And if you join me here in chapter 73 of the book of Tehillim, that's the book of Psalm, you will see why we need to look wider afield and understand the context rather than just that which is in front of us, either the front view, the side view, or the plan. We need the orthographic view so we can turn that issue into a more viewable object. Are with me? Chapter 73 of the book of Psalm. It says, a psalm of Asaph. Elohim is truly good to Yishrael, to those whose heart is clean. But as for me, my feet almost stumbled. Did you hear me? It says, my faith almost collapsed. My belief in things almost gave way. My steps almost slipped, for I was envious of the boasters. When I saw the peace of the wicked, here I am serving you, Yah, and when I look out into the world I see these millionaires and the billionaires, and they have peace. They have nothing to worry them. I was envious. For death has no pangs on them, and their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men. They don't have to worry about paying their bills. They have enough. And I wonder about this, says Asaph. The rich man, he has his wealth, and he has a lot of it. But he doesn't serve you like I am, says Asaph. But he's prospering, and he's doing well, and it bothers me, and my feet almost slipped. My faith almost collapsed. And they are not plagued by other men. In fact, they have bodyguards. So pride is their necklace. Did you hear me? They wear pride. And the writer here is gone poetic on us. They wear pride as a necklace. The garment of violence covers them. Their eyes bulge from fatness. Their heart overflows with imagination. They mock and speak in evil oppression. They speak loftily. Aesop has never lived in America, has he? They have put their mouth against the Shemaim, and their tongue walks through the earth. Therefore, its people return here. Come with me to verse 15. He says, if I had said, let me speak thus, see, I would have received the generation of your children. Yet, when I tried to understand this, it was labor to my eyes until I went into the Mikdash of the hell. Until I go into the temple, into the tabernacle. I was concerned until I went into the temple of Yah. I perceived your hand. I learned, I come to understand what their end is going to be. Yah is telling Asa, be patient with the process like Habakkuk. Be patient. They never get away with it. No man gets away with anything. So don't be envious of them. Just let them bide their time. Because after they have bidden their time, the trumpet will sound, and those who are spiritually alive will rise up. We're talking about the now time. He said, I was concerned about my faith. That here I was worshiping and doing all that I'm supposed to do, keeping the Shabbat and keeping the feast days. And when I look out into the world, I see people prospering more than I am, and I wonder, where is Yah? But until I went into the temple and studied this, I realized that their end is not pretty. Everybody must come before the judgment seat of Yah. Don't worry about them. And so the same message bellows to us this morning. And the message is, where there is no vision, where there is no revelation, the people perish, according to Proverbs 29 and verse 18. They go to church. They go to their institution week after week. But they get no revelation from Yah. They're not learning anything. And so where there is no vision among the people, where Yah is not revealing himself through his word to the people inevitably will perish, says the word. They see only in their intuition. They are relying solely on their instinct, inkling, their hunch, suspicion, their conjecture. That's how they look at Gaza. And one man will say on that fateful evening of October the 7th, 2023, Hamas, militant Hamas, that's how they speak, came into Israel and the southern border because Israel had kept his eyes on the north. And they came through the south. But how many people stopped to think what that night was? That night was the 8th day the last day that closes out the autumn season of the feast. It was on that evening that they were attacked. That was the close of tabernacle, the season of Thanksgiving. But if you're not seeing, you're just not seeing. Habakkuk, look around you and get a wider context. Get this orthographic view. Put away the isometric view. Put that away. And another person comes along and they say, 1,200 people died that night. Half of them being women and children. And look how Israel has responded. Since then, with brute force, 46,600 people have so far died as a consequence. And we're reading that tomorrow morning, being Sunday, there's going to be peace in the Middle East. Peace. So the people who analyze the situation in Gaza, what do they see? What do they see? Are they seeing like Habakkuk? Or are they seeing like Yahweh? Because if we're not seeing like Yahweh, we're not seeing. We're not seeing. So the question emerges, what does it mean? Because one man's clarity is indeed another man's mud. What is happening in Gaza? And why is it that the people who have formed themselves in faction, ideological faction, are seeing things that are so opposed to each other? Why? One man says Hamas did this, and another says Israel did this. And we are watching now, as we speak, decision unfolding to us that a treaty is reached with the thought in mind to have a two-state solution. But I hear the word of Yah says, the land must not be sold beyond reclaim. That's in Leviticus 25. He said that. So whose land are you cutting up and giving that sugared part to that group and that sugared part to another group? Because Yah said the land is mine and it ought not to be sold. It ought not to be done that way, because that's where I'm going to put my throne, in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is going to be a burdensome stone. We're watching that. So why are you not seeing it? Why? Why are you not seeing it? So come with me to the book of Yeshayahu, that's Isaiah, and we're going to be looking at chapter 11 and a few verses there. And the word says, and a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yishah, that's Jesse, and the sprout from his roots shall bear fruit. I hope you're following where I'm going with this. Everybody is looking for peace. Everybody is looking for shalom. But we won't have peace. It doesn't matter how many treaties they sign in the Middle East, not until Yeshua comes. And indeed, people will continue to lose their sons until they accept the son Yeshua that Yahweh sent to them. They will continue to lose their sons. So he says, a rod shall come forth from the stump of Jesse, and the sprout from the root shall bear fruit. Did you get that? That's a fruit harvest. The Ruach of Yahweh shall rest upon him, and Ruach of wisdom and understanding, the Ruach of counsel and might, the Ruach of knowledge and of the reverence of Yahweh, and shall make him breathe the reverence of Yahweh, and he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ear. Did you hear me? Let me read that for you. Those of you who look in Gaza, and from your own intuition, this become counterintuitive to you. You're judging by what you see by your eyes. And you make decisions. And you say things that you have not thought carefully about because you're only seeing with your naked eyes. If you have not seen what Yah has seen, you have not yet seen, as Habakkuk found out. You need a wider lens, zoom lens, to understand the prophetic nature of what is taking place in Gaza and elsewhere. And you don't have that. Where there is no vision, no revelation from Yah, the people are going to perish. In all you're getting, get wisdom, get understanding. So this Prince of Peace, who is on his way. And so all we're seeing is the condition that are laid down, because the Bible says in Daniel chapter 2, verse 44 and 45, he said, in the time of all these kings, he will come. The stone kingdom will be cut out of the rock, will come and will crush all these nations in this time. So what are you seeing? Be patient, Habakkuk. Be patient, psalmist. Be patient, saints of this time. Be patient. No man gets away with anything. That's what he's saying. Verse 4, Isaiah chapter 11. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. Did you hear me? We read earlier that the word is the bow. And he put that bow in the sky as a covenant. We also read that the bow is now naked, signifying that it's ready to strike. And he says, that word, that rod of his mouth, and slay the wicked with the breath of his lips. Did you hear me? And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and trustworthiness the girdle of his waist. Now, this is the king, this is the sovereign who is coming to reign. And righteousness is the essence of his being. So what do you think will happen to the liars among us? Those who tell lies without even thinking what they're doing. It's just part of their nature. They're lawless. And you have people who are in the church, religious, saying there is no law. That's what they say. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard lie down with the young goat, and the calf of the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child leads them. The cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones lie down together, and the lion eats straw like an ox. It is letting you know what things are going to be when the Messiah comes. But he must also know the conditions, what they are going to be like before he comes, as they were in Noah's time. You got to understand it. Because I asked the question earlier, well, what are we seeing in Gaza? What is it that is happening, or what is it that happened that a treaty is now going to fix tomorrow morning? What is it? Come with me to verse 11 of Yeshayahu. That's Isaiah 11 and verse 11. And it shall be in that day that Yahweh puts his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Asher and from Mitzrayim and Pathros and Cush, that's Ethiopia, including Sudan, from Elam and from Shinar, from Amath, and from the islands of the sea. One can conjecture that this is people from the Caribbean also. So he's saying, I am here performing a work that many people don't see. It's the second Exodus. And I'm rounding up my people to bring them back home. Back home where? Good question. I'm glad you asked. He's bringing them back home to Israel. So, shall we assume that if he's bringing back the remnant, the residuum of Israel, there must be a place for him to put them? And if there is a place to put them, could it be that one of the reasons he's doing this, he's clearing out the land to accommodate those who are coming in? Could it be that what we're watching and we're seeing in Gaza, what has gone on for the last 15 months, is that Yah is making the place ready for the residuum, for the remnant of his people to come home? Could it be? Could it be? So come with me now to the book of Azon. The book of Azon, that's the book of Revelation, because we're told that the everlasting gospel must be preached to all the world. Why? As a witness. That's Revelation chapter 14. And I looked, and I saw a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of the Shemahim, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of a loud thunder. And I heard the sound of the harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders, and no one was able to learn the song. As I said last week, this song is born out of the experience. And those who were saved, the word says they were not defiled by other women, by other churches, by other institutions, because the daughter of Zion is likened unto a pure and undefiled woman, according to Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 2. And that's what the remnant looks like. Undefiled. In doctrine, in lifestyle, in diet, in the way they deport themselves, they're just circumspect. And that's what the Prince of Peace wants from his people. But we're told that the everlasting gospel must be preached. And it must be preached to all who live on the earth. All who live on the earth. And so, if you don't understand the subject, one wonders, how are you going to preach it? Because the everlasting covenant is broken. And so I want you to come with me to Isaiah chapter 24 so that we can link up everything and come to a conclusion, see if we can make sense of it, at least those of us who are not suffering from orthographic dyslexia. And common sense does make sense to us. Chapter 24 of Isaiah, and the word says, see, Yahweh is making the earth empty and making it waste. That's what he's doing. So that which you saw and in dribbles still see in Gaza, it's part of the clearing house or the clearing out of Yah's objective. I'm making the place empty, not just your little part of the earth. But I want you to understand, my remnant, they're coming back home. And I need space. I need a place to put my remnant, the residuum. There must be a place. So I'm making the place ready for them. Isaiah 11 and verse 11. I'm in now chapter 24 of Isaiah. It says I'm making the place empty and waste to overturn its surface and shall scatter abroad the inhabitants. That's what I'm doing. I'm driving certain people out of certain places. It's in the word. And it shall be as with the people, so with the Kohen. No distinction between the laity and the priest. As with the servant, so with the master. So with the poor, so with the billionaires. And it doesn't matter what alliance they make with leaders, it won't make any difference. Because when I went into the temple and I studied it, because I was envious of their riches, I'm told that their end is not pretty. And so I don't worry anymore about them because I understand their end. I understand that. But I'm clearing out the place. As with the buyer, so with the seller. You can tell that to Wall Street. You can tell that. As with the jobber, so with the broker. As with the teller, so with the bank manager. As with those who have and those who don't have, tell it to everybody. Shout it from the mountaintop. The earth is completely emptied and utterly plundered, for Yahweh has spoken this word. He has spoken the bowl. This earth shall mourn and wither. The world shall languish and wither. And you asking why these things are happening? Yeah, he's answering you. The haughty people of the earth shall languish. For the earth has been defiled under the inhabitants because they have transgressed the Torah. They have transgressed what? The everlasting covenant. That covenant made in chapter 9 of Genesis. Yah said, I have made the covenant with whom? With Noah, with the animals, with the fruits, with the earth. They have transgressed that. Just go into their supermarket, as I said earlier. They have transgressed it. So how can you preach the everlasting gospel if you don't know it? They have transgressed the Torah, changed the law. You remember the time when Yah said in Genesis 2:24 that a man should leave his mother and his father and be cleaved to a woman? The Supreme Court on the 26th of June 2015 said, you don't have to follow that anymore. They have changed the laws. They said it's all right for two people of the same gender to get married. They have changed the law. The earth is going to be emptied, because his kingdom is about a kingdom of righteousness. Can we not understand that? Can we? Wow. For the earth has been defiled under the inhabitants, because they have transgressed the Torah, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. That covenant was made to keep man in check and to let him know, hey, I'm not going to flood the earth again. It would be easy to be done. Florida is only 8 feet above sea level. Yeah, I could just speak to the west coast of Florida and the east coast of Florida in the water. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. And his word is law. He said, I'm not going to do that. But I'm coming with fire. And so that intrigues me when I look into California. I'm coming with fire. Because you then have to ask whether or not any of the conditions that I mentioned earlier, can they be found in California and elsewhere? And the answer is, I said the answer is. And so Yah says, I'm going to devastate the earth. So don't just look in one place, Habakkuk. Look all over and get the context. Because my people are coming from all over the world and I'm bringing them back home. So I'm shaking the earth. And what can be shaken will be shaken. That's what he's doing. And all you're seeing is politics. No, no, no. Prophecy is playing out in politics. That's what is happening. And each man and each woman who has been appointed to a particular task, they are fulfilling their role in the kingdom, for good or for bad. Yeshua said, have I not chosen 12? And one is a devil. So you may look at people in office and you're wondering, what are they doing there? They're there for a purpose. They're there for a reason. And Yah has approved that reason. He told Habakkuk, I'm sending for the Chaldeans. So when you look today existentially and you see someone in office who looks like a Chaldean and behaves like a Chaldean and talks like a Chaldean, don't worry about it. Yah has okayed it because he has a work for that person to do, whether for good or for evil. You got to understand that. But we pray. We really do pray that as we looked on the object of the world, we will not only see the front view, we will see the side view, and we'll see the plan. The plan looks down, and that's what Yah does. He looks down. We look from the sideway, and some look from the front. And what we're trying to make sense of is this two-dimensional view of a three-dimensional object. You can't do it. So in technical drawing, if you're drawing that object and you're trying to put all the pieces together on paper. If you look at the front, that which you cannot see at the side, you would do that in broken line. We call that hidden details. It's there, but you cannot see it. And that's what Yah was trying to tell Habakkuk. My prophet Habakkuk, it is there. You just can't see it because it's in hidden detail. I have appointed Nebuchadnezzar to come up, the Chaldean. And you see that beautiful temple you have there? It will be destroyed. But Habakkuk couldn't bring himself to understand that. Couldn't. So Yah said to him, look, behold, see, look at the nations. And when you look at the wider context, you will understand what is happening in Israel. The message is for us. Look, see, understand that these times are serious times. And Yah is asking us to open our eyes and look and understand. Because we are in the midst of a Nephilin culture, but the bow is uncovered and ready to strike. May we understand that. May we take heed and do that which is right. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.